managed by the Multinational Maritime Coordination Center with its headquarters located in Accra, precisely the Christiansborg Castle, Osu, in the Klote-Kole constituency, which I have the honor of representing in this House. Despite Ghana's prominent position, Mr. Speaker, our domestic legislative and institutional framework remain inadequate to match the scale and complexity of the maritime crime threat, which has transnational dimensions to it and also a direct impact on our national security. Some of the challenges Ghana faces are as follows. Ghana has still not completely domesticated the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the principal international legal framework for maritime governance. The definition of piracy under the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, Section 193, is inconsistent with the Article 101 of UNCLOS, which has resulted in our inability to successfully prosecute acts of piracy under our laws. Lack of clear regulations and sanctions in place to address issues of crime at anchorage, especially since Ghana is both a coastal and a port state. Ghana does not currently have a standalone maritime offences law, the absence of which means that prosecuting for piracy and other maritime crimes is hampered by our ability to respond swiftly and effectively, but it also undermines our commitments under international law. Our maritime insecurity arises from increased transnational organized crime, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, environmental crimes and environmental degradation, disappearing biodiversity, and effects of climate change, to name a few. Some of the maritime crimes include piracy, armed robbery at sea, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, drug trafficking, human trafficking, oil bunkering, and smuggling. And this requires harmonized legal responses across various jurisdictions. Without the domestication of UNCLOS and other relevant instruments, Ghana remains vulnerable to these offenses and prolonged legal proceedings that benefit perpetrators of crime. Mr. Speaker, piracy and maritime crime have direct and tangible impacts on Ghana's economy and the well-being of our citizens. One of the most significant but often overlooked effects is the elevated cost of maritime insurance premiums for vessels traversing the Gulf of Guinea. Because of our maritime corridor, which is considered a high-risk zone, shipping companies are charged higher insurance rates. These costs are ultimately transferred to the Ghanaian consumers in the form of higher prices for imported goods, including food, fuel, machinery, and pharmaceuticals. In other words, Mr. Speaker, the insecurity in our waters is quietly taxing every household in Ghana. This means that the cost of living is indirectly inflated due to our inability to fully secure our maritime domain. If we are serious about improving our economy and protecting our borders, we must equally be serious about maritime security. Mr. Speaker, another area that deserves attention is the disconnect between the Yaoundé conduct and, and fishing communities. There is a pressing need for greater inclusion, awareness creation, and sensitivity at the grassroots level. Maritime domain awareness must not be limited to the corridors of power or security sector alone. It must extend to coastal communities who are both stakeholders and, unfortunately, sometimes vulnerable to recruitment by criminal networks. Finally, let us not forget that maritime crimes begin and end on land. The nexus between maritime crime and border transnational threats, including terrorism and organized crime, cannot be ignored. As such, maritime security is not just a naval issue, it's a national security issue. Mr. Speaker, in light of these realities, I would like to recommend some of the urgent strategic actions that this House, courtesy of the Minister of Transport, in collaboration with the relevant ministries, departments, or agencies, submit to the House a bill that will pave the way for the repeal of our current outdated piracy laws and ensure that Ghana is fully compliant with UNCLOS and aligned with regional and global efforts to tackle maritime crime. In the course of my research and inquiries about this statement, I've also learned that steps are being taken to that effect and that Cabinet has given approval for the bill to be laid. I urge the Minister to do so as soon as practical and urge members of the House to support this bill when it does come before the House. I'll also urge the government to consider establishing a fund financed through a portion of port charges to support maritime security enforcement and operations, technological upgrades, community engagement, and coastal surveillance infrastructure. Coastal fishing communities should, in collaboration with traditional leaders in coastal communities, be formally integrated into the National Maritime Security Strategy of the country. This can be via training programs, community-based reporting systems, and economic alternatives for vulnerable coastal youth. Furthermore, I'd like to urge the government to embark on intensive awareness campaigns on the dangers of maritime crime, the importance of legal fishing practices, and the economic value of a secure maritime domain. And finally, to urge the implementation of the National Integrated Maritime Strategy and its implementation plan that were adopted a few years ago. They provide a very good framework for addressing maritime security and ocean governance in general. Mr. Speaker, the time has come for Parliament to show leadership in this area. Let's prioritize the necessary legal reforms and work across the aisle to protect Ghana's economic interests, especially our blue economy, territorial integrity, and the safety of our people. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, our maritime domain is not just a frontier. It is a source of trade, energy, nutrition, and sovereignty. If we're to secure Ghana's future, we must secure our maritime domain. Let's demonstrate leadership in this House through legislative reform, oversight, and a collective sense of urgency in rising to meet this challenge. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Honourable members, statement ably made. It is now for your comment. The floor is now open. Honourable members, in the absence of any comment, I have another statement standing in the name of Charles Forson. Honourable Charles Forson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in my capacity as the chairman of the committee on the backbenchers business to make the statement in request. In respect of the 1 hour slot provided under Order 73 of our standing orders for the consideration of backbench business on the last Wednesday of every month. Mr. Speaker, the inclusion of the backbenchers time in our standing orders represents a significant milestone in strengthening parliamentary democracy and promoting inclusiveness in our deliberations. It acknowledges the backbench members of Parliament It acknowledges that backbenchers members of Parliament can shape the national discourse by bringing forward matters of public interest, concern, and all legislative importance for debate in this honourable House. Mr. Speaker, as the British political scientist Philip Cole rightly said, allowing backbenchers some influence at Westminster is more than just when they speak. It is also getting the topics they want on the agenda when they want them on the agenda. This insight underscores the very essence of the concept of backbenchers business in our standing orders. Mr. Speaker, it is not merely about offering backbenchers members an opportunity to speak, but also empowering them to shape the parliamentary agenda, ensuring that voices, priorities, and realities of constituents across the country find deliberate space in the business of the House. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Backbenchers Business was established to facilitate the process by determining the business of backbenchers for each meeting. Each meeting, proposing the business for backbenchers time and the order in which the business shall be taken, and in consultation with Business Committee, present to the House for consideration a statement on backbenchers business. Although the committee is yet to fully operationalize its mandate, the committee has been laying the groundwork to activate this important provision. Preparatory work is ongoing to establish the structures and underlies and modalities that will enable meaningful participation by all backbench members in backbench business.